I'm excited to have with me Houston Stevenson. He is a talented actor and a rising star, and he's here
Oh,
today to talk about his latest movie, Fear Farm,
your
and
farm.
how he started, what's next for him, and how does he stay fit. And welcome, Houston.
Thank you for having me.
So before we started the interview, you were telling me about the going to the screening last night, right?
Yes, so because of COVID, there was meant to be the whole release down in California with the theater, and I was supposed to see all my castmates, but I had to wait till 12 o'clock till the Apple TV had released it on the dot for today. And I had waited 2 years to see the film because we shot it 2 years ago. And so that was a lot of waiting. But it was very, very exciting. It was the first time I'd actually seen a project that I was in that was shot so long ago. So for that reason, it made it just more magical because I was able to watch it as an audience member myself. I didn't really remember anything. I didn't remember my lines or kind of how the story was. So it was exciting in that sense, but it turned out really well. It was great. I was really happy with it.
Yes, and it's released today, right? And it's available on video on demand and Apple TV and the whole,
Yeah. Yeah,
you know.
it's on Apple TV, Amazon. You can rent it on DVD. You can order the DVD. Google Play has it for streaming, and it's also on Indiegogo, which is exciting. Um, and it's a blast. You know, it's got a little bit of horror. It's got some comedy. It's kind of a cocktail of that. It's not too silly with the comedy. It flows in nicely. I'd say it's almost like an American Pie meets the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So there's some definite gore. If you can't handle gore, I don't recommend this one. But it's definitely got a joyride of charm. It's kind of like going through an amusement park.
Yes, and you play Brandon, right? And
Yeah.
it's role. So tell us about the process.
Well, the way I saw Brandon is it's these four kids on the verge of graduating from high school. They've almost done all their exams and they're bored and they're sitting there. And what I used to be was this, really athletic soccer player. And now the school year's coming to an end, and it's kind of about in life, one guy wants to be an aspiring actor and the other guy wants to be a big, soccer player around the world. And it shows that transition from like what it's like to be in high school where you're around all your buddies and jocks to, okay, school's over. What do you do? Well, I guess you just hang out with your girlfriend and you drink and, you just keep practicing. But he's just this laid back jock. And I wanted to show that transition of, when you leave high school, like you're not meeting up with all your buddies to soccer practice anymore. So it's that kind of weird transition where you go from jock to just simple dude. And that's what he is. He's just a simple kind of fun guy that gets messed with quite a lot out in the cornfields. And those cornfields were one of the biggest, I think it was 100 acres of cornfields in Sacramento. So one of the biggest in North America, or I think in the United States. So that was really exciting. We actually got lost out in there, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, was it scary though to be in that kind of environment and it's like a corn maze, right? And
Yeah.
I mean,
It
yeah.
was ice cold. Sacramento, I would have thought would be a lot hotter, but in the nighttime, it's pretty cold. And we were deep way out in the corn maze, and we had guys, we have one actor who's 7 feet tall in real life, and we have one actor who's 4'8", and they're a duo, and they run around with machetes and chainsaws and, kind of very guerrilla style. You're running through these mazes, and people are jumping out at you with real chainsaws. It's almost like kind of going to Fright Night or a Fear Fest, one of those kind of things you do on Halloween, those haunted mazes, but real life. And, it kind of brings that fear into the character, which made it magical for me. It felt kind of real.
Yes. And I mean, will there be a part two?
There is a part two. It's already been shot. I am not in the part two because, spoiler alert, I do die. Most of the cast dies. It's kind of like one of those movies where they keep reincarnating a new cast. The real psycho killers behind the movie are a family that harvest teens for their skin so they can make a facial cream product out of it, which they claim makes people anti-age, but nobody knows that there's human skin in it. So that's the whole premise. all the winners that go into the VIP maze are people, when they scan their skin, are the winners that have to end up dying. So it's a bit gruesome in that sense, but that's what happens in these horror films. A bunch of teenagers end up dying. That's usually the lingo of things.
Well, congratulations. Is this your first leading role?
This is not. I have a movie that came out this year for Lifetime that I lead in called A Predator's Obsession. And that's a much more dynamic role. This guy in FearPHarm was just this laid back kind of jock. He's, you know, silly, laughing, kind of just a bit of an airhead. And Bruce is in A Predator's Obsession. He's more of a psycho killer that's heartbroken and longs for this girl that never loves him back. And he ends up going on a murdering spree. And so in the next, and that did really well. In the next 14 days, I'm flying back out to Connecticut to shoot the sequel to that, which will be shot mostly in the ocean. So Connecticut in October in the Atlantic is very cold. I have to do a lot of swimming scenes, so it's going to be freezing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, well, how do you prepare for the role? You might, I mean, like when it comes to being fit, like how do you have to be fit, right? To do that type of role.
I do lots of hiking. I'm an avid hiker. Right now, sadly, Vancouver, British Columbia, where I'm located, has some of the worst air quality in the world. I think Sacramento comes second and Portland comes first because of the wildfires. So going out and hiking for me right now, I've got a movie to shoot in 14 days. I should be doing lots of cardio. Going out and hiking for me right now would be like smoking a pack of cigarettes, apparently. So I've just been doing lots of push-ups, sit-ups, cycling, you know, one of those stationary cycles, and just lots of water and fasting. I don't eat until around 5 p.m. and then I'll drink lots of green juices throughout the day. And then 5 p.m. I'll have like a nice protein and salad. And that's the life of an actor, the struggle.
Yeah. So, I mean, so how long do you fast for? Like, is it for a week? Or like
I usually do a 24-hour fast for probably 3 days of the week. So I'll eat at 5 p.m. And this is actually in lots of men's health magazines. It's really good for cleansing you out. You eat at 5 p.m. And then if you go to sleep after you've eaten your dinner and you don't eat at breakfast, which means breaking fast breakfast, you're basically still fasting until you eat the next day at 5 p.m. And you do that 3 days a week, and you basically just start to lean down, and you keep your muscle mass. And yeah, that's all part of the job, I suppose. It's not the easiest part because I'm a big popcorn fanatic. I'm addicted to popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Houston, you've gone to school to study acting, and, you know, but I'd like to talk to you about, like, you know, getting into character. Like, what does it take? And you talked about, you know, working out and diet, you know, fasting, but how do you get into character? How do you prepare for that?
You know, it really depends on the person you're playing. For me, I suppose the best way, for example, like, you know, if you remember being a kid in the sandbox and, you know, you're playing cops and robbers, or you're building a castle out of the sand, you know, you're in a sandbox, but your imagination is telling you that you're in this world, and you're not doubting it. You're just enjoying it. And I think that's the process of being an actor as an adult, is not letting go of that imagination and basically essentially playing pretend. So when it comes to like a guy like Brandon in FearPHarm, it was really simple because I just remember my high school days when I was playing rugby with my friends, and then I left, and then I dated my girlfriend, and, you know, we went to nightclubs and hung out, and I was just more of a laid back guy. Whereas in A Predator's Obsession, when that girlfriend and I in real life broke up, I was super, super heartbroken. I couldn't take it. And the character's super heartbroken. So I could connect really well with that. And, you know, before I would long for the girl that in the movie that I was obsessed with, or I stalked, I would like text my ex-girlfriend, please come back to me, or I miss you, or I go through our photos. And whenever she would reject me, I would feel the real pain in real life. And then I jump into the scene. So I kind of used a lot of my loss, or, you know, anytime I'm like in a relationship with somebody and things don't go well, or it hurts, I wear my heart on my sleeve. It really hurts a lot. So I bring a lot of that emotion into the character, which is what I'm doing now. Actually, I just got out of a bit of a relationship with somebody who's quarantining across the world, and it just, you know, she found some other guy and it kind of crushed me. And I was like, oh, this is actually perfect, because now I can bring it into the next movie where Bruce is even more heartbroken. He's like on the quest to find love, and it's great. I get to connect the two together.
Wow. I mean, Houston, who are some of your influences like growing up? Can you tell us?
I honestly, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like, how did I want to start acting? Who influenced me? And all I can say to that is that I remember, because I lived far away out in Canada towards Lions Bay, and all the other kids were in school. You know, it took me 30 minutes to get to school every day. Most of the parents didn't want to drop off their kids to do hangovers because they didn't want to do the long drive. So essentially, I was kind of outcast and I didn't have a lot of friends. And that was funny because I was just kind of more shy, I suppose. And so my big thing was going into the Rogers Video or Blockbuster and renting like 20 DVDs. I would rent so many DVDs, and I knew the one guy behind the still didn't ever ask me for my age. I was renting like American Pie and like, you know, all these different funny, mature movies or horror films like The Exorcist. And I'm watching them at like the age of 14, and my mom and dad never knew. And I just became addicted to watching it. And I would watch 20 movies a day. And all of a sudden,
Wow.
I want to do what those people do. So what influenced me, I guess, was just watching every movie you could think of, you know?
Yes. Wow. And I mean, how important is to have the support from family and friends?
I think that's very important, because an actor is a very fragile person. People don't understand that there's lots of rejection involved with this business. And it's not so much that you're not a good actor. It's that, you know, you could have Bradley Cooper and you could have Daniel Radcliffe, and Daniel's probably going to be the guy that's going to play Harry Potter. Now, Bradley Cooper could be, and he's an incredible actor, but he's just not Harry Potter. So you really have to, as an actor, hope that not only that there's a script being written for you and your age and your look out there, but you have to pray that you actually fit the character. And when that comes along and the stars align, that's a golden thing. And I think it's important to have friends and family that understand that that's a process that takes time. And now when you start building up your resume, more and more work comes, but to finally get into it, like, it takes you a lot to just, some people, you know, they get it right off the bat. Like, you know, the cast on Stranger Things, they get a part and then boom. And so for the majority of the actors, you really have to fight and you have to work hard to just keep building your resume and, you know, understand that no is an answer sometimes. And having friends and family that can say, hey, you know, keep fighting, keep going is a really powerful thing. And especially believing that in yourself. You got to not take no for an answer, I believe.
Yes. And, you know, having a healthy mind and a healthy body, it helps, right? To keep going and to have that drive that you have and that passion, it fuels you and it prepares you for rejection, right? Because that's the nature of the business, correct?
The nature of the business. If you can't handle the rejection, you probably shouldn't do it. I mean, there are so many beautiful success stories of singers, you know, rappers, people in sports, people in acting who really had to fight. Like Jack Nicholson was just not getting anything for the first, like, I think it was 10 years. And then he just got the one part and the world saw how talented he was. And you just have to never give up. I think that's my philosophy. And obviously the passion has to be there as well. Otherwise there's just no point, you know?
Yes. And Houston, I understand you like sharks. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was almost like I manifested it. Predator's Obsession is a movie about a guy who basically, he's addicted to swimming with these sharks. He's like Steve Irwin with crocodiles. He believes he has this connection with them where he can just be one with them. And when I first saw the script, I thought it was an like a Jaws movie to make the shark look scary. And I'm not into movies like that because I don't know if you know this, but 100 million sharks are dying every year and being finned all over the world just for their fins.
Yes.
They chuck the shark back in the water while it's still alive. The fins go to, mostly in China, a trade for a food. It's a delicacy called shark fin soup. And they don't realize because of biomagnification in the cycle, the mercury levels are just so toxic But what's happening now is because the sharks aren't on the reefs, they're a tertiary consumer. We're finding that the cycle's breaking, and now the coral's starting to die, and the phytoplankton, which produce our oxygen, is starting to go down. So it's all a cycle. And I was always, when I was in high school, I was passionate about saving sharks. I saw this script and I thought, wow, it has to do with the guy that's really passionate about sharks as well. So it just aligned. It was really wonderful.
Yes. Well, maybe one day, you know, it's awesome that you like the, you know, sharks, because they are, you know, thin soup, and it's it's something.
I've dove with them. I've been diving with them, like with 8 feet sharks. I was diving along. It's almost like you're flying, because you're not really touching the ground. You're just kind of hovering along. And my brother was right in front of me. He's like, you know, pointing, and I turned around, and this thing, like this high above me, it just goes above my head. I look up, and it's like an 8-foot reef shark, or I think it was 11, something like that. Yeah. But I wasn't scared. You know, if you show fear, they feel it. But you'll understand a lot of that mentality if you watch A Predator's Obsession. You can search it up now. That's on Apple TV and Google Play and Lifetime. So check that one out if you're into sharks. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you've, you know, so what's next for you? I mean, I wanted to go back. You've started in Descendants 2 and 3, right? Was that your first role or first movie?
What happened was I was in high school, and my mom, she was a Real Housewife of Vancouver. And so she was offered to start getting into acting, and she wasn't really into it. And at the time I was doing plays through high school because you know, I was watching movie after movie, and I was starting to get into theater and acting. And she passed along the agent, who I love. She's dear to me, and I've been with her ever since. And she gave me this tiny audition for the show called Spooksville, which is written by, it's kind of like Goosebumps kind of thing. And I got this, within the first month with her, I got this little cameo where I'm walking down the beach, and I'm like, it's a regatta, Kelsey. Haven't you ever been to one before? I'm very like, you know, kind of like one of those snobby regatta kids. And then I get eaten by a big octopus. And then that was that. And then after that, I got a little cameo on a show called iZombie, and then I got a guest star role on a show called Arrow, where I played a soldier called Private Collins. That was probably one of the coolest things, because we had real guns and they were shooting blanks, and we were running through like rubble, which was falling in certain areas. And then I did a bunch of Hallmark stuff, like with Jewel, and I just shot one with Jesse Metcalf, who did John Tucker Must Die. He's pretty cool. And now off to shoot the next Predator's Obsession, and then hoping that people like FearPHarm, because this is the first day that it's out. So I've been waiting 2 years.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
That's
and
really
then Disney's Descendants was really cool. Those were, I actually started as a production assistant, as a PA on that. I wanted to work behind the scenes and learn how to do production. And I didn't realize that I would end up picking the director, Kenny Ortega, up from the airport, who did, you know, High School Musicals and This Is It with Michael Jackson and, you know, The Goonies. He's a very talented choreographer and director. And he took a liking to me, and he just said, hey, what do you want a cameo in this movie? So I got to meet all the leads, like Dove Cameron and Cameron Boyce, who sadly passed away. He was really lovely. Yeah. But that was my Disney days. Biggest Disney day for me, like young kid show, it was funny because I started with a show on Netflix, which I did 3 seasons of, called Project MC Squared, which is basically for kids. It's for young girls. I was like the only guy on it, and then the rest were teenage girls, and they all picked on me. But I jumped from that cheesy kind of, I played an astronaut character into a gory horror film. So that was a fun transition. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
That's wonderful. I mean, you started such a journey, right? And it's progresses as you go. And but I want to know, any tips for people who want to follow in your footsteps?
I would say the best tips are to study like you're studying for a university exam. You know, scripts have so many beats and moments. There are way more things than the eye can see. There's so much to do with human psychology. So study, go online and go on YouTube, or take a master class and look at the greats and how they've done it. And then the second one, I would say, what I said before, is just don't give up. If you're passionate, don't give up. Keep fighting, you know. I'm not a gambler, but I do believe if you scratch enough scratch cards, eventually you'll win something. So.
Well, you're a testimonial, Houston. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm excited to go shoot the next Predator's Obsession. I'm going to use the pain from the relationship chaos in my life, and I'm going to go be the next Bruce, a big psycho killer. So stay tuned for the crazy.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Houston. And I'd like to
Thank you for
check
having me.
back in with you. Oh, no problem. But I'd like you to come back, you know.
Love to.
Yeah, so thank you so much, and all the best.
All right. All the best.
Yes.